Welcome to Conversations from the Edge of Consciousness. I'm your host, Christine Madera. For me, and possibly for you, the inner world of consciousness has always been much more real and way more fun than the so-called real material world. Growing up, I thought I was alone in this, but I'm not. There are a lot of us, and far too many have no one to talk to who shares this experience. I've been lucky to cultivate a community of friends who love to talk about the energies, ideas, and vibrations that are pushing the edges of our own consciousness, as well as our collective consciousness. In Conversations from the Edge, we share our conversations with you. Welcome to Conversations from the Edge. This is your host, Christine Madera, and we are back today with Claudia Navone. So Claudia started her career as a ballerina and then became a fashion editor and director of publications like Elle and Harper's Bazaar. And she had a powerful spiritual awakening in 2006 that set her on a spiritual path. And she is now a teacher of consciousness and a teacher for the Divine University. She's also written on Thrive Global, a column called Simply Consciousness, where she interviews some really amazing people and helps to reveal the mechanisms of consciousness so that we can all become more conscious. And so thank you, Claudia, for being here. It's wonderful to talk with you again.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Christine.
Is there anything that I left out today that you would like people to know?
Well, I was asked to write this book from the Enlightened Masters, and really it is my story, but it's not really a biography. I mean, it's led by consciousness. So it's how my consciousness was in a certain way, and then how I completely shifted my consciousness with my spiritual awakening. And in the middle of all of that, there is a fun story to read as well, because I guess I had quite an adventurous and very interesting life. So, but yeah, no, it is a book about consciousness, basically. Yeah.
Well, and it's also a novel, right? It's a fictional story.
It is a novel. It's not so fictional. It is my life. But it is more than, I mean, it could be fictional for some people because it's very magical, and there are all these elements of magic and all these beings of light. So it's a very multidimensional novel. Let's put it like that.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right. And the name of it?
Is the Shapeshifter.
The Shapeshifter. Good. And there's a link to that in the bio information in our podcast. Yes. So if people want to jump to that, you can find that, or go to Amazon and look up the Shapeshifter. All right. So we had an interesting topic that I've been kind of pondering since our last conversation, because we touched on it a little bit when we talked about the 3 core wounds of humanity and how they rose up during particular periods of human existence or existence on Earth that rose and fell, and that we're all individually and collectively working through these core wounds. And so I really wanted to talk about the idea that we're not just individual beings trying to sort out our own individual life on this planet at this time. We're also part of these collective energies working themselves out collectively. And also the idea that when we take our life experience too personally and we make it about us, that we miss this larger flow and this larger connection. And to me, that's been something that's been coming up again and again and again over the last few weeks. And so I just wanted to have you start commenting on that a bit, and then we'll just go from there and see where the energy takes us.
Beautiful. Yes, collective consciousness. Collective consciousness is a very important subject, because if you are not on a spiritual path, on a deep spiritual path, and so you have no real understanding of that yet, because you believe that you are a single entity, basically, then the high possibility is that many things that you feel are not even yours, but you're actually tapping in the collective consciousness of humanity and the lower side of that. For example, I believe that as in humanity, there is a great fear of dying. And the fear of dying is not a personal fear. The fear of dying is a collective consciousness fear. There always been this fear of dying in humanity, of illnesses, wars, whatever. Like, look, even now in this period with the coronavirus, there's been so much fear of dying, of being, affected by the coronavirus, of dying. Many people did die, and possibly this is the first time in history where, every time you read the news, you're actually looking at the numbers of people dying. And so it's really got into the collective, even more this fear of dying, because you see all these numbers. I mean, before COVID, millions of people were dying every day anyway, but we did not know about it. We only knew about the people that we loved, the people that we knew. But now collectively, we know today in Italy, 400 people died. Do you know what I mean? Or whatever, And so we are picking up even more on this collective fear of death. I mean, there is nothing to fear about death. Death is us as souls going back home, because the real life is on the other side. It's not here. Here is our temporary life. But all with the fall, as you explained in the beginning, with the fall of the great civilization of light, which people don't really know about it because you don't learn about this in the history books. And this is the subject of my second book, which I'm writing right now. But, the spiritual knowledge was lost as collective status, let's say. And so people don't remember that they are beings of light just visiting the earth temporarily. And so they believe that this is their real and only life, and that death is a bit of a tragedy, And of course, death can be sad, because, I lost like 5 or 6 people in these past 2 years, people who were very close to me. And I miss them every day, but I'm happy for them also, because I know that they are back home, So, but let's say, so death is a collective fear. Poverty is a collective fear. Everybody is so afraid of being destitute, of not having any money. This is one. With death is the other huge fear at collective level, of humanity, is poverty. And everything that there is a lack of, like hunger, then obviously the other huge fear is war, because we have been at war forever.
We really have, yes.
Yes. So, and even now, we both live in countries where in our own country there is no war, but there are plenty of other countries around the world where there is war is there, and it's terrible, and it's killing thousands of people every day, and that is a huge fear. So, but those are not personal fears.
No, but they can certainly feel personal, because we take that experience and we run it through our own energy systems, our own nervous systems, and it feels very, very personal. That even if, we're having this collective COVID experience. And so we're actually really able to see globally how we're moving as a collective through this experience. Some people are getting sick, some people are getting vaccinated, some people are ignoring it altogether. There's a lot of different experiences in our collective experience of COVID,
Yes.
just like there is with poverty and with all of these other things that we are collectively experiencing. We all have our own personal experience of it that makes it feel very personal. But, it's not just us. It's not just our own experience. We're part of this larger story. And I think if we begin to learn to step back a little bit, like instead of taking the fear-based view, we open up to that larger experience of collective consciousness, and how are we all moving through something together.
Yes, I mean, it's more than that. It's not stepping back, it's stepping up. Well, it is stepping back from 3D and stepping up, basically, because all what we need to do is very simple, actually. The key to raise above the collective consciousness is to raise our vibration. That is very simple. We raise our vibration, and slowly but surely, we are starting this ascension journey. And in the ascension journey, we are switching reality as well. We are not affecting so much by 3D anymore, simply because we are raising our vibrations and we're not touched by the collective anymore. I mean, this needs a little bit of work from our part. Obviously. Yes. It just doesn't happen instantly. There are, many processes that goes with that, but anybody can do it. Sometimes I hear people saying, "Oh, spirituality is not for me," or whatever. But that's the silliest thing that someone can say, because we are all spiritual. Even the ones that don't believe they are beings of light to begin with. And then with all the waves, when you come to Earth, you forget till you don't awaken again. And awakening means you begin to remember. But everybody's spiritual, and no one needs to live in this 3D reality and affected by this 3D reality and the collective consciousness of the 3D reality, which is based on fear.
Yes.
Because fear is the biggest fear of the 3D reality. Is the biggest collective consciousness is the fear.
Yeah, it
fear
is
of this, fear of
basis.
That.
It's the basis of 3D reality. And so it's a good contrast that you lay out there, though, because when we're operating in fear, like all these collective things are still happening. So our collective COVID story is still happening, and you can be tapped into the fear-based level at 3D, or you can be in that place of, freedom from fear, which doesn't mean that you're denying that it's happening, that you're denying the experience. It's simply that you're not engaging in the experience from the posture of fear. And the same thing with poverty, and the same thing with death, and the same thing with these things. These are still part of our collective experiences. We're still flowing with the energy, but we get to choose whether we engage it from 3D fear and all the ways you can experience it in fear, or from a place of lack of fear and all the ways that you can step up and engage our collective journey from a place of love and light and personal empowerment.
That is absolutely correct. And yes, I mean, COVID is seriously happening in 3D. There is, I'm not a denier of that at all. I know personally many people who have been affected by COVID at different levels. So, it is definitely our 3D reality at the moment. But if we learn to release this fear and raise our vibration, I'm not saying that, I mean, it's as simple as that. If you need to have the experience of being sick with COVID, because there is a higher reason for that, then you will get it. and you will get that experience. And it doesn't matter if you're spiritual or not spiritual, I mean, if you're meant to have that experience, you will have that experience. If you are meant to leave this planet through COVID instead of cancer, or you die at 101 years old, then you will have that experience. And that is the way that you're going to return home. So what I'm trying to say now is that really it's not controlled by us how we die or which sickness we get because of some kind of learning. I mean, I know people that had cancer, for example, and they survived it, and they completely changed their consciousness because of the experience of cancer. And so cancer was a teacher, and I believe COVID is a teacher.
Oh yeah, to all of us.
It's a big
all at the
teacher.
Same time.
It's a big teacher.
Yeah.
Not just that, but we have to realize that we have karma with Gaia. We have karma with the animals. We have a lot of, as the collective consciousness of humanity, we have a lot of karma with the earth and with nature and with the animal and with the mineral kingdom. So COVID it's a balancing of this karma. It's a balancing act of this karma. That's what it is, really.
Well, I'm glad you brought up that collective karma, because in America, and I'm sure to a certain extent in Europe, we are really taught that it's, about the individual. And so we have an individual purpose, an individual karma, and all of these things. And we're much less oriented to the group experience, like in the Eastern thought, it's very focused on the group experience and more group karma. But we don't really think about that we're also part of the experience of group karma and the flow of that karma in our personal experience as we live our life. So it's not always about what we personally do. It's about, our part to play in this larger cleansing and clearing and experiencing of this group karma. So, it's another level of not taking your life too personally, because sometimes you're part of an energy that is working itself out, that is not personal to you, but you're participating as a member of the human species as we work that out.
Yes, absolutely. So we're all together into this, all together, really. There is, we're all there, spiritual, no spiritual, rich man, poor man, doesn't matter. We're all into it together because we are all sharing the bigger picture of the karma of humanity. We have our own personal karma. We have our own family karma that we are sharing with members of our family. And then we're having planetary karma. We're having our own karma with Gaia. And then we're having the collective karma. So, we have to work through just a tiny little bit of karma. But it's okay because it's energy and we can balance it. One of my luckiest thing that I received from my awakening is to know exactly where my karma was. My personal karma. So I could become aware of exactly where it was and balance it.
Very good.
Because it's energy, you see. And so as a result of that, after 15 years of balancing my karma, I have very light karma. And I'm only saying that not to brag about the level of my karma, but just to tell everyone that is listening, I am not special. You can do it too. I mean, how do you individuate your karma? There are many ways, but the most simple way that everybody can do, if you look at your reality and you see in which part of your reality you have the greatest blockages, that is your karma. And then, of course, you can go into the Akashic records, into the story of past life. You can do all that stuff, but in the simplest way, is just look at your reality. And you will know where your karma is and who you have karma with. You know, if you have a husband and you have serious problem with this husband, you have karma with your husband. You've been put together again, not because the heavens hates you, but because you have to work it out. You know, we have a chance to work it out. Yeah.
And as you were saying before, like if you, no matter what your karma is, where it is, and how you're experiencing these larger group karma that we're in, if you work on increasing your frequency and your vibration so that you're experiencing your karma, group karma, life in general from this higher level, you don't have the same kind of fear and pain and struggle and strife that you do if you're operating at lower frequencies, even going through the same issue and the same experience. Like you can go through a death experience of a partner or of a family member and have it be, you know, a very 3D fear-based experience, or you can have it, you're still going through the same experience, but you can have a much lighter experience of that if you're operating from a different level of vibration and frequency.
Yes, and it is completely up to us. If we wish to keep going on the merry-go-around, you know, when you keep doing the same mistakes, when you don't want to understand, when you don't want to learn the lesson, so you're going on this merry-go-around, and this merry-go-around will go around and around till we don't take our own responsibility and we forgive. We learn to give back the love, and we forgive ourselves, and we forgive everyone's involved. And then the lessons will be learned because we took our own responsibility, and the karma will dissolve, and this bad blocked situation will not come back to us. We'll be free of that, which is great, because quite frankly, I believe everyone wants to enjoy their life here on this planet. It can be a great life, you know?
Yes, it can. And you're right that unforgiveness is what totally blocks energy and keeps you operating from that lower frequency, that lower level, and the level of previous conflict, even if it's being relived in current conflict, is kind of cycling itself over and over again. There's something that I wanted to touch on too while we're on this topic, and it's really, you know, as we're moving through and having this expansion and this awakening, it is something that I think gets glossed over for a lot of people who are really intently focused on this path, is that we also take this path really personally, and that we're looking for our own personal expansion and our own personal awakening. And we kind of forget that we're being fed by these group energies. So we're part of this collective movement, and that movement is both supporting us, and that what we do with our own self supports that expansion and awakening. And that's also a group experience that I think we're not as connected with as a community as we might be, and that might be more beneficial to be more intentionally committed as a community, because I think it will help advance the energies a little bit more dramatically. But that's something I hear a lot. A lot of people feel like they're alone on that path, even though they know they're not, but they haven't flipped that switch from believing it's a personal journey to really embodying the collective journey. So what do you have to comment on about that?
Okay, this is very good, because I've been very lucky, because I am part of this wonderful divine university. And we have been raised, we have been taught from the very beginning to be in group heart and group mind with each other. So we've been really building this, and it's amazing. And it's quite a big group of us now. It's, I mean, not huge, but it's 80 of us at the moment. And just being internally part of the Divine University, and you know, we will be many more in the future. But it's an amazing experience because we have this incredible support, not just within each other, with each other, but also coming from the enlightened realms. Because when you are learning stuff all together, it's a very powerful experience, and you can move much faster into an acceleration mode of transformation. And this can also happen when, I don't know, for example, if I teach to a group, that workshop, it's really powerful because I will have 30, 40, 50 people with me for 2, 3, 4 days, you know, forever, for whatever, how long the workshop is. And they is like this amount of people. So the energy is much bigger and becomes what we call a pod, like a dolphin pod, but like a pod of consciousness. And so it's collective work. And this is why the collective work, like when you attend workshop, it's so powerful. It's much more powerful, I believe, than one-to-one. I mean, one-to-one is great. I love to give also private session, and I do that sometimes. And because, you know, you go into that, the house of spirit of, you know, of that person, and focus more, you know, on one person. But when you are part of a workshop, the energy is so much bigger, you know. And so when you're part of a group of people like the Divine University, this energy is massive. And from the enlightened realms of light, we can receive things altogether that we could not receive in a single way. So that's why it's very beautiful to work in this way. I am someone that honors everybody that is on the spiritual path. You know, I don't see any separation, even if you're not part of the Divine University. I don't see any separation because we're all part of the oneness. And I believe there are millions of different streams of consciousness that are coming directly from the enlightened realms of light. So this is why some people learn in a way, some other people learn in another way. You know, like all the learnings can be a bit different. But you know, what we are learning, all of us, is about love and consciousness, basically. And that is the same. But how you get to things can be different, and there is not the right way or the wrong way. I believe everybody has the right way, and it can be a little bit different because of all these streams of consciousness. This is why in the Divine University, we're working very much with the Syrian streams of consciousness, of spiritual truth and knowledge. So we're working with our Syrian higher self, because then you're all unified on that same streams of consciousness. But, you know, personally, I have a very developed also Andromedan higher self, or you know, Arcturian higher self. So, you know, it's just the different streams of consciousness. And that's why you have all these wonderful teachers around the world that teach all in a slight different way, because it depends from their streams of consciousness. And I believe that the worst things that a spiritual person can do is to judge another spiritual person, is to judge their teaching, to judge this. You know, when this judgment comes in, there is no spirituality. We have to honor
that separation.
Yes. So we have to honor every single person that is on this path of transformation. We have to honor every single person that is teaching, every single person that is writing a spiritual book. We have to honor everyone.
As we're making this transition from operating from the either or, us versus them, separation, lack type of thing, and mentality, to this more oneness based, consciousness based, as people are on that spiritual path, like they, they move from one toward the other. So knowing that, like when you're in that place of feeling separate or feeling like you can't, like somebody's teaching is wrong because it's not the right teaching for you, that's the reflection of that separation and of that 3D. And so I think that a helpful way to begin to counter that was one to remember both, and like what you're talking about, that all of these things have their benefit because they speak to different people in different ways with different kinds of consciousness, all working together for the same, moving in the same general flow. But I think also the importance of finding your own community that you can be in that kind of synergistic energy with, like you are with the Divine University, so that you're not pursuing it alone, but you don't have to make anybody else wrong or make your path and your community right, because that just is that old energy. But the real true importance for people on the spiritual path to find some form of community on that path, so that you're operating in that law of synergy, the law of two or more, that you are synergistically amplifying both your own consciousness and the whole stream of consciousness and the consciousness of the other people that you're working with together, and you're feeling connected, because it also helps to amplify that feeling of connection. Because I know a lot of spiritual people who feel like alone on the path. And so I just want to put out there that, that's a choice, that you can actually begin to just ask to find people that you are synergistically compatible with and form your own small communities, not to exclude other ideas, but to simply support one another as coming together in that place of connection.
That is very, very beautiful. And also as a teacher, now that I'm teaching, because I have a group mission with the Divine University, and then I have my own mission as well into that. And so in my own mission, I've been building many spiritual communities. I love traveling. I mean, I can't now, but when the COVID will be hopefully gone, I will start to travel again. And I love to personally go and meet people. So I have like a community in London where I go and teach. I have a community in Ibiza. I have one now in Milano. I have one in São Paulo. I want to build really one in Los Angeles as well, but I have to go back. Obviously, in Australia, I know a lot of people, because also a lot of people from the Divine University. So, wherever I go in the world, I am raising a community of people that feel the call to what I'm teaching, because obviously I cannot teach to all souls. I am teaching to the souls who are called to do the work with me. That's all, and but it's beautiful because also obviously now I can't travel, but I'm doing the Zoom. So then I have everybody coming together, on the Zoom, because we are online. So it's not geographical anymore. And it's just wonderful. And also all of my students, they know each other, so they can exchange things together. So I've got the Divine University, and then I have my own community that I'm building as well. And then I recommend everyone to go on the Sirius Library to check what the Divine University is. But I always leave a lot of freedom to people. I don't believe, one thing is religion. Religion has been always very good at brainwashing people. There is a lot of brainwashing in religion, because I don't want to speak negatively and in a negative way about religion, but religion has a dogma. Yeah, there is a dogma in religion. In spirituality, there is no dogma. And so there is a lot of freedom. And I mean, even the way, I call people to me, Well, it's just I let everybody know I'm doing a workshop, and then there is no push of any kind. You want to come, you come, you don't, it's like freedom, 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 because it's all about the power of attraction and the higher self of that person that wants to come and learn with you is between ourself and higher self and their higher self, and they will be called. So you cannot force anyone on the spiritual path. There is no forcing, there is no dogma. And that's so beautiful because everyone can eventually find their place.
I wanted to do a little contrast there because, a lot of people on the spiritual path transition from traditional religion to a more spiritual outlook. And one of the things that religion is good at is that it's good at community, because you build the community around a collective belief system. And a lot of people, when they shift out of that and move to the spiritual ways of thinking, everybody has a little bit different thought process, and there's a lot of resistance to conforming your thought process to somebody else's. And that tends to interfere with having that larger sense of community, because oftentimes, like in that old model of community, you have to let go of your own personal belief and adopt the group belief in order to be accepted in the community. And that's not true at the spiritual level, but there's a residue of that as we're making that shift. So really beginning to embody that you have the freedom to experience and express your spiritual self in your spiritual life at your own pace, on your own path. And you can be in community with other people who are also on that path without feeling like you need to validate or take on somebody else's process in order to be in community with them. And I think it's a shift that people are still grappling with because of that old idea that we need to deny our own self in order to be part of a group of people that makes up a community.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you something now, which is very relevant to this. Spiritually, it's all about one thing. Is your heart and consciousness resonance to what that teacher is telling you? Is that the truth for you or is not? So this is how you choose probably which way you want to go. I remember my experience with my teacher, Koala, which is the founder of the Divine University. So to cut a long story short, one day I just arrived to her group in Byron Bay in Australia. And now I never done a spiritual workshop in my life. I was completely like not even read a spiritual book in my life, but I could see spirit, but that was it. Yeah. And and I remember when I sat on this circle, and I was a real fashionista still, and I was looking at these people all a bit hippy-dippy, and I was judging, like, what is this crap, and then there was this altar in the middle, and I'm like, what is this stuff, all this crystal, like, you have no idea. I was very cynical. And then I didn't even know who Koala was, never saw her, I had no idea who she was, not even in the circle, because she's sitting like everybody else in the circle. Suddenly, this woman starts to speak. And I promise you, I was like, oh my God, I know this. I know this. I had such an immediate resonance to everything that she was doing, to everything that she was saying. And this incredible energy that, that was coming to us. I was back home in that moment, a cynical fashionista who was only interested in what am I wearing today? I like that man. I want to do this. I have to go to this party. And, that's the way I was. But as soon as she opened her mouth, I was struck. And 2 days later, I had my huge spiritual awakening.
Wow.
So really, you know the truth in your own soul, because your own soul knows the truth. And
Yeah.
when I heard koala speaking, that was also my truth. It might have not been someone else's truth, but I completely resonated with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Wow.
found my teacher in 1 second, you
Wow.
know. And
That's
that was my
powerful.
experience. Yeah, that was very powerful. And she's still my teacher and my very, very dear friend now as well. And she's incredible. And she's the most humble person, and she's so much in her integrity. That's something else that
Yes.
people have to look at is
Mm-hmm.
integrity. That is one of the biggest lessons that I received from Koala, the Family of Light, and the Divine University is integrity. We have to be in
Mm-hmm.
our integrity, you know.
Yes.
And yeah, so but so this was my experience. But I am sure that for everybody it's the same. You either have the resonance with a teacher or with someone, or you don't. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. And it
And
doesn't make
I
that teacher wrong. It just means that that's
no,
not the teacher for you. It's not your pathway
exactly,
in the journey.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And that is why we have thousands of, I mean, maybe not thousands, but many spiritual teachers, because every soul can have a resonance to one
Mm-hmm.
of these teachers. It's done in purpose, because not everyone will resonate with the Divine University. Not everyone
Mm-hmm.
will resonate with that ashram in India. And so that's why there are so many places where one can go, because the spiritual path, it's all about your own truth. What does resonate to you?
Yes.
And that is the empowerment journey.
It is. And then as you find your personal truth, then you're also tapping into that larger collective energy that's connected with that truth, and you're moving forward with that energy. So, we have this interesting balance of our own personal journey and our journey as a collective. And so I was really glad to talk with you about this, because I think it's something that we just tend to kind of gloss over a little bit too much. So thank you for discussing this with me. And is there anything else you want to say about this before we wrap up?
Just that I wish to everyone to raise and raise and raise their energies, and expand themselves, and not to be affected anymore by the lower grade of the collective energy, the collective consciousness of humanity. Because when you're beginning to ascend from that, oh my God, I mean, life can become so blissful. Your
Mm-hmm.
reality can become so blissful, and you can do it. So this is my heartfelt wishes for everyone that is listening to us today.
Perfect. Me too, because you can have a blissful experience even as we collectively are having, a lot of change and some things that can be painful on a larger level. So, and just to wrap up on that one, that the way that you can begin to shift your energy is to move from fear toward love, and move from unforgiveness to forgiveness. It's letting go of those old, dense, fear-based energies and opening up and expanding to more love and light and empowerment and those bliss experiences, and allowing people to be who they are without judging them. Well, thank you for talking with me today. And what links would you like people to know about so that they can reach you? And also, I want to say that you can find all of these links at conversationsfromtheedge.net under the bio section for Claudia. So we can put those there as well. But why don't you tell people, so if they want to tap it in really fast, they can.
My book, which is, all my experience of my awakening journey and the shift of
Mm-hmm.
consciousness that I received. My Instagram, because very often I give people some little videos with some keys for things.
Mm-hmm.
So there is quite a bit of spiritual truth in that, but it's only little bites. Do you know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean?
Yeah.
But the Instagram can be inspiring. as well. And then, of course, when my website will be up, then there will be a lot of material in there, a lot of courses and a lot of videos where I explain a lot of things. Yeah, so and also the serious library, because that is at the moment is the home place of the Divine University, and people can find a lot of information on the Divine University on that.
All right, Claudia, it was great talking with you today. It always is. And I'm looking forward to our next conversation as well.
Oh, thank you so much, Christine. Thank you.
This is your host, Christine Madera. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation from the edge of consciousness. You can find all our conversations at conversationsfromtheedge.net. You'll also find links to schedule a private conversation with me or any of my friends, as well as tools to help you expand your own consciousness and explore what's possible for you outside the boundaries of your current perceptions. Feel free to use this podcast to start your own conversation by sharing it with friends, on social media, in your blog, or even in your own podcast. And as always, live the adventure of pushing your own edge. It's the most amazing adventure there is.